Crisis on Infinite Earths is going to be, play into that finale pretty big. And
What's Crisis?
was that always the plan when, with the Crisis on Infinite Earth that's been teased for a long time? Was that always the plan to lead into the finale?
No, not really. It's a good question. It was more along the lines of we were talking about Crisis on the one hand, and then we were talking about the end of Arrow on the other. And they were two separate conversations. And then, just by virtue of the time in which they were taking place, we started to realize those two conversations are related to each other. I always sort of knew how we would end Arrow, but it was always a conversation specifically about Arrow, not about any sort of crossover. So once we started talking about the crossover, those two things started to combine and conjoin. But I think, the goal has always been, do an amazing crossover. Crisis on Infinite Earths, the thing I've been saying is we can't screw this up. This is, holy text for comic book fans. It's one of my most beloved comics. It's one of Greg's most beloved comics. We have to make that work on its own terms. At the same time, I think we came up with something that helps, sort of honor Arrow's legacy and sets up the series finale, and it all works together.
Does the finale mean the end? Because
the end of Arrow?
We live in a world where we have finales, but we don't. It comes back years from now.
That's a good question. Well, look, the one thing this show has taught me is never say never. I mean, if you go back and you look at all the press conferences and interviews we gave in season 1, I think we've basically violated every single promise we made to you guys. In fact, I don't even know why you're talking to me, because we're all complete, not liars, but we clearly are not correct when we predict the future, and that's why I don't predict the future.
What challenges and if there are any benefits of creating a season with only 10 episodes as opposed to the 20 plus that you usually do?
I will say that's a great question. The challenge is always financial, because when you are producing 10 episodes, you have less. This is more like tall grass stuff, but you have less money to amortize. You have less episodes to amortize your budget. That said, while we always go into every season with a game plan, 22 episodes, you have a much more sort of theoretical game plan than you have when it's 10. When it's 10, you can be really specific, especially since we're talking about 7 episodes, really, then into the crossover, then into the final 2. And, it's a very tight plan that we can really stick to in a way that you can't stick to when it's 22 or 23.